Hey folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris. Well, where's Joe? That's the question. Has the Manchurian candidate become the Manchurian cadaver in the White House? What's going on? Well, I famously pointed out throughout the entire Biden candidacy that this is simply an ego trip to soak his ego to achieve his lifelong ambition that he's failed at repeatedly. Sensing a moment that he could finally ascend to the heights in the midst of chaos, media betrayal of the truth, democratic subterfuge, and disloyalty to the nation, it was a chance for Joe Biden, as everyone was focused on destroying Donald Trump, for him to slip by. I also famously predicted during his feckless campaign when he hid in his basement that within 90 to 120 days after assuming office as president, presuming he had been elected, that he would either resign and step aside for health reasons, or that Nancy Pelosi would begin to push to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him on the basis of senility or dementia, something like that. Now, we've seen that Joe is hard at work. His poor hand is cramped from signing executive orders day after day after day, unlawful, unconstitutional executive orders that are racist, xenophobic, and undermine our national security, just to get started. But folks, in less than 30 days, the wildly unpopular former Willie Brown girlfriend appears to be usurping the office of the presidency. What am I talking about? She's making phone calls to heads of state that presidents make. Where's Joe? Nowhere to be found. Probably already napping. I suspect she's making these calls after 10 a.m. And we all know that Joe has his waffles and trips over his puppies and then walks down the lawn to stand next to hideous juvenile cardboard cutouts of hearts to celebrate Valentine's Day. Yes, the near octogenarian must get his rest after a full 2 hours and 50 minutes of labor each day. So it's understandable that Kamala Harris would step into the breach and take over the responsibility of talking to foreign heads of state. Very important that she's done that. Well, what am I talking about specifically? In just recent days, she's called Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Yeah, not Chrystia Freeland. Who? Chrystia Freeland. She's the deputy prime minister, an appointed position, but you wouldn't know that. That'd normally be the sort of person that the vice president might speak with, not the president, and certainly not on behalf of the U.S. president without them even knowing about it. And most recently, on the 15th of February, Harris called France's President Emmanuel Macron, not Prime Minister Jean Castex. Wow. Now, all of this for a political candidate who received less than 2% of the Democratic primary vote in the election campaign and pulled out after little-known Representative Tulsi Gabbard absolutely eviscerated her highness, her phony highness, no pun intended, her phony highness on the debate stage. Of course, the Democrats couldn't allow Tulsi Gabbard to get back on the stage after that. She was too great a threat to the frontrunners because Kamala Harris was no longer a frontrunner. They couldn't have that happen to Manchurian Joe, so that wasn't going to happen. Well, let's hear what Harris said to Macron and to Justin Trudeau in her role as president, vice president of the United States. In her call to Emmanuel Macron, this is the press release, Harris expressed her commitment to strengthening bilateral ties between the U.S. and France and to revitalizing the transatlantic alliance. There's nothing wrong with the transatlantic alliance. It doesn't need to be revitalized. It's just time for freeloading Europeans to start paying their share that they agreed to ages ago of the transatlantic defense bill. That would be 2% of the GDP. Hardly a king's ransom. Donald Trump got that to happen. I suspect we're going to see some backsliding now. She said that Macron agreed on the need for close bilateral and multilateral cooperation to address COVID-19, climate change, and support democracy at home and around the world. Well, that's rich. They also discussed numerous regional challenges, including those in the Middle East and Africa, and the need to confront them together. Now, this is what Harris tweeted on her Twitter account. Apparently, she's not blocked. Only former President Trump gets blocked by Jack Dorsey's fascist platform. We discussed COVID-19, climate change, supporting democracy at home and around the world, and regional challenges. At POTUS and I look forward to working with President Macron to build a better future for our two countries. Who you kidding, Kamala? At POTUS? He's not even involved. You have him sign the papers you stick in front of his face. You give him an ice cream cone, let him trip over his puppies on the front lawn, and then he goes to bed. We know what's really going on here. Susan Rice and perhaps even Barack Obama are running this presidency. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. And you talked about supporting democracy at home and around the world. Really, this coming from a candidate who is elevated to office in the most corrupt and invalid election in U.S. electoral history. This disputed election has yet to be addressed fully, and this week the U.S. Supreme Court is finally taking up 4 cases arguing about corruption and fraud in the 2020 elections. But it's kind of rich to hear Kamala Harris, who could garner less than 2% of the Democratic primary vote, which is only 1/3 of the eligible electoral pool. And for those who vote, less than 2% is probably about 0.6% of the nation's voters supported her in the Democratic primary season. And she's going to talk to us about supporting democracy. She's basically been anointed vice president. Her sole qualifications for the office after she called Joe Biden a racist in the debates was her gender and her skin pigmentation. And that's how she became vice president. Well, there you go. So you're going to talk to us about democracy. Okay, thank you very much. In her phone call with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he congratulated her on her historic election and recalled fondly her years spent in Montreal. Harris said that we discussed our commitment to work closely on several issues, including combating COVID-19, addressing climate change, and expanding our economic partnership in ways that advance the recovery and create jobs in both countries. Expanding your economic relationship in what ways? The U.S.-Canada-Mexico trade agreement is brilliant and has increased trade before the political scandemic of COVID shut down our economies. Wow. As Raheem Kassim from the National Pulse in the UK says, it's bizarre for a vice president to be making contact with key world leaders just weeks into administration. It's beyond bizarre, folks. Has the Manchurian candidate Joe Biden become the Manchurian cadaver in the White House? Will he even make it to 90 days as president or 120, 180 days? We shall see. Meantime, in a highly unusual situation, we find a vice president making heads of state phone calls in Washington, D.C. Folks, if you didn't believe the elites run the world, you ought to be paying attention to events unfolding in Washington and global capitals around the world. And what's happening with the tech titans trying to influence us. What the hell is Bill Gates doing pushing vaccinations? Go back to making crappy software that you overcharge and gives us blue screens of death. You're most adept at that. Well, folks, if you're not a subscriber to Chris White Africa, why not become one? Smash the button right down there. Be sure to toggle the icon to get notified of all notifications. That way, whenever we do a live stream, prepare a video, or a premiere, you'll get notified, especially if you have your YouTube app open. And finally, how about giving us a like? We really appreciate the likes. It makes a difference. The more likes the video gets as a percentage of views, the more likely it is YouTube will actually promote the video. And we want people to see this news and analysis. So thank you for your time, for your patience, and for your custom. God bless.